However, this is Bradley. I think here's where we left off last time about exploding a planet. If you haven't watched that tutorial, I recommend you to watch that. So I will basically pick up where we left off to make the kind of light streak. I will select these faces, lengthen that at the x-axis, shrink at the other end, everything basically done. And here's one thing that I want to mention is effect origin. This feature is only available since Blender 2.81, and before that you cannot do this. You have to use a method to set origin use 3D cursor, which is very complicated or so on and so forth. And snap on faces and GX. Then everything looks nice. Shift S selection to cursor, so everything has been oriented toward origin, which is cool. I will name this light streak. Second thing I need to do is to be able to rotate this guy. If I'm going to set the rotations, then I can rotate this guy freely. So I'm going to use a random ruler. But to only have a single light streak is very boring. So I need to instance object instance. Turn off this snapping. Object select and object goes object. Actually, before I do anything, I probably will Alt R to offset all the rotations, clean all these keyframes. I think now this looks nice. If I will create a list and set the instance to 5, connect the ruler. Then now I have 5 instances. I need to disable the most original instances, so I can use this button. It'll hide everything, or sometimes I just throw that into a hidden collection. So now this is it. I realized if the scale is about 3, then it rotates 360 degrees in all directions. So probably if you start a keyframe, you want start with 3 or similar value. To have better control to both amount of instances and the count of random ruler, I'm just going to use an integer input. Yes. Now this is nice. What else we can do? Oh yeah, I'm going to keyframe this scale. So instead of keep using the scale, I'm going to set another set of keyframes. I'll clean this unused channel, and then I'm going to use location, probably X, to the scale. And then I'm going to start keyframe that. Start auto keyframes. Start with 3. Goes next keyframes. Just type in whichever number you want. It essentially does not really matter. 25, 35, so that you can see. I will increase the amount of streaks to make it more interesting. And here I think this animation is somehow good. And I'm going to change their scales about all this light. I'm going to scale. And as we know, we lengthen this original model on x-axis, which means if I scale up this x-axis, they will also scale up. So this is the principles. We can use a vector wiggle. So it's basically same as random vector, but you have more controls on all these axes, in addition to some other functions. So we plug this in, we create a list, plug this in, and put this count to count. Now everything looks kind of weird. To have better control, I'm going to combine vector. And set it to 2. I'm going to use Y of location to control its X. I mean, I understand it's kind of confusing, but you can also use custom property. But in this case, I will just use everything available in this panel, which makes my life easier. So everything starts with 0. I'll probably also use this Z-axis to control both Y and Z. So everything starts from 0 now, and goes to next keyframes, scale that up to 5, and scale that up to 1.5, and goes to next keyframes. Everything starts to lengthen. Actually, probably 35. Keeps at 1.5, and it goes to next keyframes. Everything disappears at 0. Let's preview that. Not too bad. Actually better than I think initially. Let's create a camera so that we can really see this animation better. So I create a camera and move at the y-axis. You can see the angle looks very weird, so I'm going to hit Alt-R to clean everything. And oh, damn, I need to clean up all these keyframes. Delete keyframes. Yes. Hit RX90 so that I'm seeing this animation. So let's move backwards more and preview our animation with fractures on. This is not bad, I think. Not too bad. There's some parts that we definitely need to tweak, but I think it's fine at this moment. One thing that you realize is all this streak is not square at the end. It's because if you goes to this node, select this node, hit W, goes to viewer, you can see all this number has been generated. Y and Z axis are not linked. To do this is very simple. I separate vectors, combine vectors, and use this Y location to control both Y and Z. So in all cases, they will be linked to generate a square at the end. I think this is nice. And there are many different ways to change these values. Also, I think which is possible to do is to edit the original setup of our light streak. So you can really do a lot of things. In this case, I probably would just call it done. If you're not happy with the random seed, you can just change that. Then it will create a lot of variations as you wish. I think this seed 2 is super nice at this moment. And if you would like to change anything about Y and Z axis, you can do like a float math, like time 1.5 to make it thicker. 5, this is too much. Something like that. I think I will call this super nice now. Also, a way to do is a map range. Map range is actually kind of complicated to explain. I think it's very intuitive. Input minimum goes to output minimum, input max goes to output max, according to the value you actually input. So if I input this value, one thing you realize is our y will not go beyond 1.5. So maximum will be 1.5. Then you can put this value to here. And I need a curve interpolation. Basically, in this graph, x-axis means inputs, y-axis means output. And plug it in. So what I want to do is, at the low value of input, I want it to have a higher value of output. So this is the idea. Also, one thing you need to realize is, I don't know why, maybe this is a bug. Curve interpolation does not update our node tree very well. So you have to just change your frames to update node tree better. And here now you realize we actually have less streak. The reason is our input minimum is 0, but the output of its number can be negative. So they all goes to output minimum, which is 0. In this case, this is very easy to fix. It just goes to absolute number, then it's fine. So these are the ways to retweak these numbers. I'm really happy with this result so far, so I'm not going to tweak that further. Again, you can do a lot of things with that. You may not even do as many things I've done here. It really depends on your needs, but I'm just showing you what kind of things you can potentially do. So let's start to work with camera before we move on to shading. To shake the camera, usually there are many different ways. Like you just keyframe them, and in graph editor, you can hit N, and there's a modifier of noise. This noise, however, you cannot keyframe these values. It says scale property cannot be animated. This is a very bad thing, so I will never do this. I will not use modifier. I will use, again, animation nodes. So I'm going to use object transform output, and again, as we mentioned in the last tutorial, is if you directly select this camera, then it will go to location of 0, 0, 0. It's not what we want, so we need initial transform. Select these objects and go to animation node from current location. Location plugin, object plugin stays at the normal position as we want. Everything nice, cool, awesome. Then the next step is how to shake that. We need a vector math. And then I need a vector wiggle. This number is too high. We can potentially vector from value so that it's easier for me to tweak. Oh yeah, we need to shake this camera as the time goes. So I need a time info. So if I plug these frames into evolution, then it will wiggle. So it may not look like wiggle, but you can see this camera is actually moving. If you think it moves too slow, then you can simply use a flow math to increase its value, like times 5. Then this camera will basically fly. Like if you times to 100, then it will basically become super crazy. Depends on what you actually want. But here's one thing is that I want it to shake at the beginning of the entire explosion, and the camera should stay more steadily as the time goes. How can I do this? One thing I thought is use map range, as we mentioned earlier. So the input will be will input with this. So the reason I do this is because I know that the length of the entire timeline is 220. So the input max so if I set this input as, let's say 180, So and if you hit the viewer, then the output will stay at 280. So even if my time goes to 193, so you can actually cut that. And if you use curve interpolation, you can make a super steady curve, make it hyperbolic. So the meaning of this entire thing is it shake a lot at first. So we can take this. So let's just try how this actually works. So initially it shakes a lot, but as the time goes, it shakes less and less and less. Basically goes steady until it hits to 180. So this is the principle. So you can tweak a lot of stuff. Let's go to camera view. See how everything looks. Okay, probably now this is kind of boring. Let's 15. Yeah, I think this is basically nice now. I would call it done. Anyway, so to do a wrap up, although this tree looks kind of complicated, but it's essentially 3 parts. Essentially, these are 3 trees being integrated together. So this is the first part 1, and the other part 2. Basically, they're procedural, and there are ways to make them even procedural at some level. One thing I hope you to realize, basically all controls are in the controls. So you just need to tweak these keyframes, you can do all the works. And how many keyframes do we actually have? We have 5 lines, so it's about 20 keyframes maximum, something like that. I think this is very handy. And we are going to add more keyframes with shading, but that's another story. Well, shading takes more time. Should I actually start with shading? Not sure. Anyway, I will save the file and I'll probably see you in next tutorial. Bye bye.